Ready for a deep dive?
Always.
Well, today we're tackling something pretty fundamental. Core values.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you know those guiding principles that kind of shape who we are and like how we make decisions in life.
Right, right.
And I think a lot of people hear core values and they're like, sounds boring. But trust me, this stuff gets really interesting.
Yeah, I think what's fascinating about core values is that they're often working behind the scenes, you know?
Oh, totally.
We don't always realize how much they're influencing our choices until we actually, stop and examine them.
Exactly. So to help us with that examination, we're diving deep into this article from Nutrunity UK.
Okay.
They're a naturopathic nutrition clinic. And they have some really great questions in here. Like, how can understanding your values help you navigate all those tricky life challenges? Or choose a career that truly, you know, feels right?
Yeah.
Even deal with those people who just, like, rub you the wrong way.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Right. So it's like they're saying values can be a secret weapon for a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
But before we get into all that good stuff,
Yeah.
let's back up for a sec.
Okay.
What exactly are core values?
So the article defines them as our fundamental beliefs.
Oh,
The, foundation upon which we build our lives, you know?
hmm.
Choices, behaviors, goals. They all stem from these really deeply held beliefs.
So it's not just about, like, what we say we believe, right?
No, no.
How those beliefs actually play out in our actions.
Absolutely. Think of your values as a compass,
Okay.
always pointing you in the direction that feels like truly authentically you.
Gotcha.
Now imagine you're trying to travel with a compass that's constantly spinning.
Oh, that would be awful.
Right. That's what it's like to live out of alignment with your core values. It's confusing, it's frustrating, and it can really lead you astray.
Okay, so I'm starting to get how this whole compass idea is important.
Yes.
But where did these values even come from in the first place?
Right.
Are we, like, born with them? Or do they develop over time?
That's a great question. The article talks about this too. A lot of our early values, they're shaped by our upbringing,
Oh, okay.
you know, our parents, the environment we grew up in.
Right.
Like if you were raised in a family that really emphasized honesty above all else, that's probably going to become a core value for you too.
So our early experiences kind of plant those seeds. But it doesn't just stop there.
No. Life is full of these experiences, big and small, that can shape and refine our values as we grow.
Totally.
Think about major life events. Getting married, having children, changing careers. These things often force us to reevaluate what's truly important, you know?
Yeah, because we're constantly evolving as people.
Right.
So it makes sense that our values would kind of evolve too.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do we actually figure out what those core values are? It's not like they come with a little label.
You're telling me. It takes some real inner work. And thankfully, the article gives us this practical 7-step process to uncover those values.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So let's break it down. What's step one?
Step 1 is all about brainstorming. The article says just grab a pen and paper or open a doc on your phone.
Okay.
And just start writing down every value that resonates with you. Don't overthink it. Just let it flow.
So we're talking about like honesty, kindness, creativity, adventure, whatever feels important.
Yes. And you might end up with a pretty long list, which is totally fine.
Okay, so what's step 2?
Step 2 is where we start to narrow things down a bit. They suggest thinking about your role models.
Oh, interesting.
Who are the people you really admire, and what qualities do they have that resonate with you? You know, maybe you admire someone's courage, their dedication to justice, their unwavering optimism. Whatever it is, chances are those qualities reflect some of your own core values.
It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves by looking at the things we admire in other people.
Exactly. Then, step 3 invites us to look at our own life experiences, the good and the bad.
Okay.
You know, think about those defining moments that shaped you. Maybe it was overcoming a big challenge or a moment of deep connection with someone. What values were at play during those times? What did those experiences teach you about what really matters to you?
I'm already thinking back to some of those moments for me.
Right. It starts to get really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so step 4.
Step 4 is all about organizing.
Okay.
You know, that jumble of values you brainstormed. They suggest grouping them into categories based on common themes. Like if you've got independence, freedom, and adventure on your list, maybe group those under a category like autonomy.
So creating some order out of the chaos.
Yes. And then step 5 takes it even further. They say to take each category and give it one word that captures the essence.
Okay.
So instead of autonomy, maybe it's exploration, or self-reliance. We're boiling those values down to their purest form.
I love how practical this is.
Yeah.
So we brainstormed, looked to role models, reflected on our experiences, grouped similar values, and now we've boiled them down. What's next?
Now we get to the hard part, prioritizing.
Oh,
Step 6 is ranking your values in order of importance.
okay.
Narrow it down to your top 6 to 8.
Got it.
This might take some soul searching because it's about deciding what really matters most.
Yeah, this is where it gets tricky.
It can be, but it's so valuable because once you've identified those top values, they can be like your guiding stars.
That's a great way to put it.
And that brings us to the final step, number 7. Observe and learn. This is where you start paying attention to your choices and your behaviors in everyday life. Are my actions lining up with my identified values?
So checking in to see if we're walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And if you find your actions are constantly clashing with your values, well, it might be time to make some adjustments. Remember, this isn't about being perfect. It's about striving to live authentically in a way that feels aligned with who you are at your core.
Wow, this 7-step process has been really insightful.
Yeah.
It feels like we just mapped out our inner landscape.
Yes.
And now we have the tools to navigate it with more intention. But I'm curious, what are some of the benefits of actually living a values-driven life?
Yeah.
Stick with us. We'll be diving into that right after this. Okay, so we've done all the work to map out our core values. Now what?
Right. Well, the article goes on to talk about all the benefits of actually living by those values. And I gotta say, I'm pretty intrigued.
Yeah, me too. Lay it on us.
So one of the biggest benefits they highlight is finding your purpose.
Okay.
When you really know your core values, you've got that inner compass pointing you towards the things that really resonate with you. It's like a roadmap for a more fulfilling life.
I like the roadmap analogy, but purpose, that's a big word.
Yeah, it is.
What does that actually look like in real life?
Okay, sure. Let's say one of your core values is creativity.
Mm-hmm.
You've always loved to write or paint or play music, but you're stuck in this job that just feels like soul-crushing.
Oh, I know that feeling.
Right. So by recognizing and honoring that value, you might feel inspired to take a leap. Maybe you start a side hustle, take some classes, or even totally change careers.
Yeah.
It's about aligning your actions with what lights you up.
So it's not necessarily about finding your purpose in some big existential way,
No, not necessarily.
but about making choices, whether they're big or small, that reflect what matters to you.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just career stuff.
Yeah.
Values can help you navigate everyday decisions too.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Imagine you're at the grocery store. You're totally overwhelmed by all the choices, right?
Love it.
But if one of your core values is health, you're going to naturally be drawn to those foods that nourish your body. Or let's say you have to make a tough decision at work. If integrity is one of your core values, you're probably going to choose the path that feels honest and ethical, even if it's harder.
So they act as a filter, almost,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
helping us weed out the options that don't align with our true selves.
Exactly. And here's another benefit the article mentions: increased confidence.
Oh, I like that one.
Yeah. When you're living according to your values, it brings us inner peace and stability. You know who you are, what you stand for. And that can be really empowering.
It's like you're on the right track.
Yes.
Even when things get tough, you have that inner knowing.
Exactly. You're less likely to get swayed by, external pressures or opinions because you have this solid internal foundation.
This is making so much sense. But life isn't always sunshine and rainbows. What about those times when our values bump up against each other? Or when we have to deal with people whose values are totally different from ours?
Yeah.
Does the article address that stuff?
It does, and it acknowledges that this is where things can get really tricky. Sometimes you have to make these tough choices, and there's not always a clear answer. Let's say you value both family and adventure,
Okay.
and you get this amazing opportunity to, travel the world for a year.
Oh, wow.
But it means being away from your loved ones. How do you navigate that?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It sounds like there's not a right or wrong answer in those situations.
Right.
It's more about weighing your values and seeing what feels best in that moment.
Absolutely. And when it comes to dealing with people whose values are different, the article really emphasizes empathy and understanding. We don't have to agree with someone's values to respect their right to have them.
That's so important, especially these days when it feels like everyone is shouting their opinions from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Just because someone's values are different from mine doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means we've walked different paths.
Exactly. And sometimes those different perspectives can actually enrich our own understanding of the world. We might not change our core values, but we can learn to see things from a new angle.
So it's less about finding the perfect solution and more about approaching things with self-awareness
Yeah,
and empathy and a willingness to learn and grow.
that's a great way to sum it up. And remember, this whole journey of self-discovery, it's ongoing. Values can evolve as we gain new experiences and learn more about ourselves. It's not about locking ourselves into some rigid framework. It's about having a compass to guide us.
It was kind of funny. We started out talking about core values as these like abstract principles, but this conversation's really made them feel more tangible, like they actually matter in everyday life.
It's amazing how that happens, right? When you really start to understand something, it goes from this vague idea to a practical tool you can actually use.
Totally. This whole exploration has been pretty eye-opening, honestly. I'm already
Wow.
thinking about how I can use what we've talked about to make better, more intentional choices.
Oh, that's great to hear. And don't forget, this is just the beginning, right? The article mentions that values can change over time, and I think that's such an important point.
Yeah.
We're not static, we're always growing and changing, so our values might shift too.
Yeah, so it's not about like setting our values in stone,
Right.
but being open to how they might evolve, adjusting our compass as we go.
That's it. And speaking of evolving values, the article asks this really thought-provoking question.
Okay, hit me.
Think back to like your younger self, maybe even your teenage years. What was one value that you held super strongly, something you believed in with your whole heart?
Mm-hmm.
Has that value stuck with you? Or has life kind of shifted your perspective?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm already digging back through my memories here. I bet everyone listening is doing the same thing right now.
Right. It's amazing what we can learn about ourselves by looking back on how our values have shaped our journey.
It really is.
And sometimes it's not even about a total change, but more of a deepening or more nuanced understanding.
Mhm.
What might have seemed black and white when we were younger, it often becomes more complex as we get older.
Absolutely. And I think that's the perfect note to end on. This whole core values thing, it's an ongoing process, a constant journey of self-discovery. So keep exploring, keep questioning, keep refining that inner compass, and see where it leads you.
Well said. I couldn't agree more.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into core values. We hope you found this exploration as insightful and inspiring as we did. Remember, understanding your core values is a powerful tool for creating a more fulfilling, more authentic life.